Surprising act of kindness from Maid transforms billionaire's son's life after his mother's death. The silence of the mansion echoed like a funeral dirge. For Alex Bennett, every corner seemed to amplify the absence of laughter, especially now that his mother was gone. At 22, the gilded walls of Beverly Hills swallowed his dreams, making them feel insignificant against the weight of his father's expectations. He couldn't help but feel like a ghost trapped in a luxurious prison, shrouded in grief and uncertainty. Today, the rain tapped insistently on the windows, matching the internal storm brewing within him as he sat in the grand living room, paintbrush trembling in his grasp. "Why even try?" he muttered, dropping the brush onto the canvas half-heartedly. The art world felt like another elite club, unnecessary and out of reach, a mere hobby for wealthy kids seeking validation. He could hear his father's voice in his head, dismissing his love for art as trivial and unworthy. Alex's heart sank further than it already was, resenting what he once cherished defined his days now. The weight of expectation loomed, pulling him deeper into despair. Maria, the family's housekeeper, was used to seeing him in the shadows, but today was different. Normally composed and reserved, she paused at the doorway, her brow furrowed with concern. "You have a gift, Alex. Don't hide it," she said, her voice gentle as though noticing a fragile creature barely breathing. He blinked, momentarily stunned by her unexpected kindness. It lit a flicker of hope, something he feared had long been extinguished. As she continued her work, Maria spoke of her past, her struggles, her dreams of becoming an artist, barely making ends meet. His muscles tensed at the thought of her life contrasted against his. How could he, with his privileged upbringing, ever complain? And yet her stories ignited something inside him, an ember of inspiration. What if his art could become his voice, a way to connect with the world around him? He imagined stepping beyond the opulence and diving into the raw emotional depths she painted with her words. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. But courage is a chaotic beast, and as the weeks passed, doubt clawed at him relentlessly. The art competition drew closer, and it felt less like a path to redemption and more like a daunting chasm threatening to swallow him whole. Maria's unwavering belief in his capabilities stood in stark contrast to the demands of his father, who saw no value in a paintbrush when the world was focused on algorithms and profit margins. Inside, a tempest raged. Could he really unshackle himself from the weight of expectations? The night before submissions, he stared at a blank canvas. Doubt, paired with urgency, suffocated him. What if I fail? His mind raced with visions of his father's disappointed scowl, of the elite critics scoffing at his attempts, ignoring the hard work Maria had inspired in him. He felt like he'd teeter on the edge of sanity without an anchor. Her words rang in his ears, a haunting blend of hope and despair. At that moment, Alex stood before a crossroads laden with questions that refused to untangle. Would he allow the ghosts of his past to dictate his future, or could he find strength in vulnerability? As the storm outside intensified, so did the turmoil inside him, an unbearable crescendo building toward an inevitable confrontation with the echoes of his family legacy. The dawn broke with a hesitant light, filtering through the rain-soaked windows and illuminating the untouched canvas that still loomed over Alex. The uncertainty of the previous night clung to him like a shadow, threatening to suffocate the flicker of inspiration Maria had ignited. With each heartbeat, he felt the weight of decisions piling on top of each other, pressing against his chest, urging him to act or flee. He picked up the brush again, his fingers curled tightly around it, as if it were a lifeline. But hesitation clawed at him, whispering that he would only ever be an imposter in this world. What if I'm not good enough? The thoughts spiraled through his mind like a tempest, every negative echo amplifying his fear. But beneath that fear, something else flickered. Anger. Anger at himself for letting doubt take residence in his mind. Anger at his father for running his life like it was a business deal. With emphasis, he dipped the brush into a palette of colors, an array of blues and blacks that represented the storm within, his grief, his anger, his confusion. Each stroke on the canvas became an act of rebellion, a counter to the stifling walls his father had built around him. Slowly, his brush transformed the blank space, transforming emptiness into a tempest of swirling emotion. This was his catharsis, his voice breaking through the silence. Hours passed as he lost himself in the rhythm of paint and passion. The outside world faded, and when the realization struck that he had created sonorous chaos, he felt a rush of exhilaration. In this moment, he was no longer a hollow teenager seeking approval. He was an artist reclaiming his narrative. Yet, just as powerful as that thrill was the gnawing awareness that this expression would inevitably clash with the rigid expectations of his father. Who would want to buy this? He mumbled to himself, instantly feeling the sting of self-doubt creep back in. He realized he was still tethered to opinions he found suffocating. In the subsequent days leading up to the competition, Alex felt an uncharacteristic resolve stirring. He decided to seek feedback beyond the gilded confines of his mansion. He approached art students at a local community college, each reaffirming his growing belief in the power of his art. Their critiques weren't mired in elitism, but were rooted in a shared passion for integration and authenticity. With each conversation, he built bridges rather than walls, and it felt liberating, a release from the chokehold of societal expectations. Evenings became sacred. He embraced the ritual of painting as meditation, allowing his emotions to pour onto the canvas. Determined to embody his mother's spirit, her unwavering belief that life was a series of choices made with passion, Alex started to take ownership of his creations. He found himself painting not only to heal, but to communicate a deeper complexity that transcended superficial views of wealth and privilege. Then came the day of the submission, and as he stood before the gathered panel of critics, a familiar ghost of anxiety began to creep back in. Questions began to flood his mind, battling for dominance. Would they understand? Would his father storm in, face twisted in disdain as he publicly denounced his art? But before the moment of submission arrived, he closed his eyes, recalling Maria's words. "You have a gift." They intertwined with the vibrancy of his work and grew stronger, finding a way past the layers of doubt. He released a shaky breath, deciding it was time to be true to himself, regardless of the outcome. As he presented his piece, the reactions varied, but one word stood out from the murmur of conversation: brave. A tingle ran through him. Would it be enough to overcome the familial legacy that sought to squeeze him into conformity, or would he have to confront his father's wrath? The moment of truth had arrived, an intersection of self-discovery and conflict where every decision could spiral into empowerment or despair. Alex felt adrenaline surge as he prepared to face the consequences of his choices. This would be the ultimate test of character, one that could either quell his convictions or ignite a fierce new battle. The days following the presentation moved with a surreal slowness, each hour stretching out, filled with the weight of uncertainty. The piece he glimpsed in the gallery felt precarious. Despite the word brave lingering in his mind, reality loomed larger than any fleeting moment of validation. The gallery's lights had dimmed, but Alex felt the flames of change flickering dangerously, and he had yet to confront the ire of his father, who had remained conspicuously absent. His father's silence sent waves of anxiety surging within him.
Would the man who had woven expectations tighter than any fabric truly stay away? The fear of that confrontation paired tightly with a burgeoning sense of empowerment, prompting Alex to strive harder in his personal development. His thoughts began to spiral into planning. He needed to consider how he might harness this momentum.
How to fortify himself for the inevitable confrontation should it arise. Facing his father now felt both daunting and necessary. Encouraged by the validation from the community college students, he shifted his focus back to the canvas. Each stroke sharpened his identity as an artist. The very essence of his struggle echoed in every hue. The instinct was simple. He needed to delve deeper, not just into his feelings, but also into the core of what his art meant to him. He began to attend open studio nights, where he found camaraderie with other artists and a willingness to share techniques and foster feedback. The exposure to raw talent and genuine passion infused his work with new life, pushing his boundaries further. He had initially assumed his father's business model would shine through his art as he worried it wouldn't measure up. Yet, what if he charged toward the darker shadows of despair and grappling complexities that mattered? Why not embrace both vulnerability and strength in his creations? This was the real exploration of the self, broken pieces assembling into a visceral statement, an artistic exploration that he could stand by without fear. Then, late one evening, he received a call from an unexpected source, Maria. Her excitement bubbled over as she proposed a collaboration, an idea to represent their art at an independent exhibition. The prospect ignited his imaginative spark. The thought of showcasing vulnerable depth alongside hers felt like stepping onto a precipice of possibility. We could express not just our pain, but our liberation, she suggested. In the days leading up to the exhibition, Alex poured himself into this collaboration, his resolve cementing with every brushstroke. Art became not merely an expression, but a physical manifestation of his growth, an unguarded honesty radiating through colors and forms. He felt lighter, drawing strength from every knowing glance exchanged with Maria as they forged an unbreakable bond through creativity. However, looming in the background were reminders of his father's expectations, reminders that threatened to infiltrate this newfound purpose. As Alex stood in the shadow of his latest piece, it all swelled up within him, an internal conflict of devotion to his art versus fear of familial rejection. What if his father arrived? What if he witnessed this act of boldness, potentially dismantling the fragile confidence Alex had cultivated? With every beat of his heart, the stakes rose higher. The time had come for Alex to breathe life into something greater than himself. But would his father's storm snatch victory from his grasp? The final brushstroke on the canvas awaited, but simultaneously a confrontation loomed just outside the realm of art. A decision was imminent. Could he stand resolute before the impending clash between self-assertion and paternal authority? The day of the exhibition dawned with an uncharacteristic haze, the kind that wrapped itself around the city like a shroud. Alex watched as the clouds mirrored his thoughts, swirling with anxiety and anticipation. The gallery buzzed with the energy of eager audiences, but his heart raced. For an entirely different reason, his father would be there. The thought alone sent a tremor of trepidation down his spine, igniting a battle between the thrill of showcasing his art and the dread of familial confrontation. As he stood before the nearly finished piece, a chaotic blend of colors and emotions that spoke to his journey, he felt the weight of anticipation pulling him in two directions. Maria, her voice a gentle whisper amid the bustling crowd, urged him to absorb every moment. "This is our achievement, Alex. You've created something truly profound," she reassured her, her eyes sparkling with belief. But her words felt like a tease against the looming threat of his father's disapproval. Would his validation come from those who understood, or only from the man whose expectations had suffocated him for so long? With each passing moment, Alex struggled to ground himself in the reality of his work. The scent of paint and varnish wrapped around him, mingling with the fragrant aromas of hors d'oeuvres served at the exhibition. He closed his eyes, inhaling deeply, attempting to drown out the outside noise. The brush had become an extension of himself, each stroke a revelation of his inner world. But just as he began to source strength from his creation, the door swung open, and in walked the familiar form of his father. The sight jolted him. His father's presence felt like a storm cloud ready to unleash a torrent of disappointment. The devastating blow of perceived failure loomed, ready to drown out any moment of triumph he had hoped to experience. Alex's hands trembled slightly, his palms slick with sweat as his mind raced through the possible outcomes. Would this be the moment his father dismissed his work as trivial, merely a hobby and never an ambition? Or, even worse, a reflective rejection of the life he had meticulously built for spiteful gain? The internal dialogue pounded in his mind. But then a flicker of defiance ignited within him. He had poured himself into this piece. It represented more than art. It encapsulated struggle, bravery, and a rejection of mediocrity. As he approached his piece, the chatter of the gallery fell away, and it became a cocoon, shielding him from the anticipated confrontation. In that space, doubt collided with determination. He took a deep breath and walked toward his father, aligned with a newfound resolve. "Dad," he began, his voice steadier than he felt, "I want to show you something." With each step toward his father, the cacophony of self-doubt faded, replaced by an urgent need for authenticity. As they reached the canvas, his father's expression shifted from indifference to curiosity. It was a tiny crack of vulnerability, but it was there, a glimpse of recognition, perhaps even understanding. "You see, what it is not just about paint. It's agony, hope, and connection," Alex asserted, feeling the tightness in his chest loosen. Each word dripped with honesty, an unintentional manifesto of his evolution. His father's gaze narrowed, absorbing the colors, shadows, and light that defined the work. But just as Alex hoped for a breakthrough moment of acceptance, an indignant voice sliced through the air. "This is pointless, Alex. Why waste your talent on squiggles?" The moment hung suspended, thick with tension. Not only had his father spoken, but so had his anxiety, reminding Alex of the invisible shackles he had clung to for so long. What could he say now, standing at this critical juncture between aspiration and expectation? In that breath of uncertainty, a tempest brewed within him, demanding resolution. Alex faced not only the external clash between his father's disbelief and his burgeoning self-assertion, but also the internal battle that had been festering all his life. The question lingered: would he let the storm sweep him away, or could he embrace the tumult to shape his destiny? As the night stretched on, the glimmer of potential hung in the air, teetering on the edge of realization. Alex was left with one daunting choice. Would he transform this moment into an affirmation of his identity, or would he concede to the shadow of his father's legacy? The conflict was far from over, and the final brushstroke of his journey awaited. The air in the gallery felt thick as Alex absorbed his father's derision, each syllable etching a deepening scar in his gut. Time seemed to crystallize, holding him in a moment that threatened to implode. He realized this wouldn't merely be a confrontation, but a turning point. In the midst of the swirling chaos, he questioned himself again. Who had he become, and who did he want to be? With his father's disapproving gaze fixed on him, Alex's voice faltered momentarily. The vibrant strokes of his painting, an amalgamation of turmoil and triumph, seemed to mock him. But as doubt encased him, a glint of resolve ignited. This piece embodied his defiance, a declaration not to succumb to expectations that felt as old as his relationship with his father. "Dad," he began, voice firming once more, "what you see as squiggles, I see as life unfiltered. This is everything I am, my struggles as a student, my failures in pursuit of perfection, and the beauty in this chaos." The defiance in his voice tempered the chaos around him.
His father's brow furrowed, a reflection of confusion that Alex didn't allow to derail him. It was not just about the art. It was about a lifetime of yearning for acceptance. You think it's pointless, but it's allowing me to speak in a language that doesn't reject me, the language of who I am. I'm no longer chasing the version of success you've defined for me. The weight of the moment did not lessen, yet Alex felt lighter as he slowly dismantled the chains of expectation. A few nearby patrons paused, their expressions shifting from idle curiosity to something resembling admiration. He felt eyes upon him, not just his father's, but the eyes of those whose blinks had been caught in his.
"Alex," his father finally said, the tone unsettling, infused with a mixture of annoyance and something softer. "You think this is your voice? It's just paint, and you've wasted your potential." Beneath the surface of determination, Alex's heart pounded with resentment. "It's about more than talent, Dad. It's about what that talent does for me, what it brings out of me." The words poured from him like a burst dam, liberating each pent-up feeling. The gallery that once seemed suffocating became his arena, where each stroke on the canvas echoed a deep-seated cry for acceptance. In the background, he heard Maria's encouraging whisper, although it was barely audible above the dialogue. She embodied all the support that now bridged him and the external acknowledgement he had fought so hard to attain. Each affirmation bolstered his courage, and he pressed on. "I want to create a connection through my work, to tell stories of pain and joy that reflect the humanity we often overlook. This piece is a start." His father blinked, processing the rush of emotion in Alex's eyes. Hesitation flickered on his face, a fleeting recognition of the son he had dismissed and the artist he might not fully comprehend. It was clarity wrapped in shadows, and Alex seized the fleeting moment. What if we redefine what it means to succeed? What if our legacy isn't the aspirations built on power and prestige, but the courage to express ourselves authentically? His voice grew softer, yet resolute. Templates of ambition couldn't contain him any longer. The tension morphed into something unnameable. A question lay between them, unasked but palpable. The gallery resumed its buzz, but now the noise felt vibrant, filled with infinite possibilities, as if the world were urging him onward. Just then, a figure brushed past him, an elderly patron with a paint-stained beret who stopped and turned. "I don't know about squiggles, but whatever it is you've got here, it's raw, it's real, and it speaks to me." The unexpected acknowledgement sent a jolt of warmth through him. "See, Dad?" Alex shot a glance toward his father, who looked conflicted, trapped between his own reservations and the beginning of acceptance. They stood there, father and son, navigating a fraught bridge spanning passion and expectation, each immersed in a definition of legacy that wasn't quite reconciled yet. "If you don't see it now," Alex breathed, fire charred with vulnerability, "maybe one day you will." A heartbeat passed, and their gazes locked, a moment suspended in uncertainty, teetering between hope for connection and the lingering shadows of doubt. As the whispers faded into a tumult of color and sound, Alex wondered if this was merely the start of something profound. Then, just as hope began to surface, a shadow flickered across his father's face. In that split second, Alex could sense the reluctance beneath his father's icy demeanor beginning to crack like fragile glass. The affirmation he desperately sought danced just out of reach, yet the impending conversation felt charged with possibility. Would the acceptance he craved ever manifest, or would the past continue to loom like an unyielding specter? With those thoughts, Alex steeled himself for whatever was to come next, knowing the real struggle lay in embracing vulnerability. As the night unfolded, the distance between aspiration and acceptance began to narrow, with the truth looming on the horizon, waiting for either confrontation or coexistence. As the night wore on, Alex felt the energy in the gallery shift. The crowd that had once been an indistinct blur, like paint smeared across a canvas, began to coalesce into distinct faces and voices, each drawn to his work. Whispers of admiration resonated in the space, carrying the weight of an acknowledgement he had long sought.
But his father's lingering presence tethered Alex back to a swirling storm, a reminder that the exterior validation felt like bright colors contrasted by the dulling gray of paternal disapproval. He stepped away from the crowd, seeking a moment of solitude where he could unpack the myriad emotions swirling within. The walls, adorned with countless art pieces, seemed to close in around him. Even nestled in a sea of vibrant creativity, he grappled with feelings of inadequacy, countered by a burgeoning sense of identity. That recognition, the one he had fought for, was fragile. Like the paint on his canvas, it could easily smear if not cared for delicately. In a quiet corner, his fingers ran lightly over the surface of his painting, tracing the chaotic swirl of colors that felt like an extension of his own struggles. An intense confrontation with his father had pulled back the curtain on years of suppressed creativity. He had set the groundwork for a new philosophy, one where his voice did not echo merely the expectations of others, but sang its own unfiltered song. Maria approached, her presence like a soothing balm. "That was so powerful," she said, her eyes lighting up as she gestured toward the throng still mesmerized by his piece. "You spoke from your core. Your authenticity can't be faked." For the first time that evening, a smile crept onto his lips. It felt freeing, yet, his words trailed off, uncertainty creeping back in. "Yet," she prodded gently, "yet I still feel unmoored." His fingers clenched around a small notebook he carried, filled with sketches and snippets of ideas. "What if tonight was a fluke? What if the acceptance I'm feeling is temporary?" She studied him, her expression shifting to one of understanding. "This is part of your journey, Alex. Not every step will feel solid. Your challenge isn't just about finding acceptance from your father or anyone else. It's about embracing your own voice in the face of doubt. You have to cultivate it every day." Her words struck chords deep within him, resonating longer than he anticipated. The journey was not simply a path crafted by external validation, but a deeply personal evolution. Now more than ever, he realized the importance of nurturing his artistic voice amidst distractions.
"Maybe I should stop seeking justification from my father altogether," he mused aloud, testing the thought with a tentative edge. "That could be liberating," she replied. "But it must come from a place of internal strength. You can't dictate how he responds, only how you react. His acceptance may not come, but your belief in your art can empower you regardless." Her affirmation triggered a cascade of realization. Alex recalled moments in life where he had constrained himself under expectations while sacrificing pieces of his identity. Every decision he made that sought approval caused layers of his creative spirit to dim, thereby prolonging an ongoing cycle of frustration. As the noise in the room faded momentarily, he envisioned a world where he collaborated with himself rather than sprayed colors meant to conceal. This revelation, wrapped in the unyielding texture of his canvas, surged through him. Perhaps resilience could flourish through his commitment to growth. "Thank you for reminding me," he said, sincerity illuminating his tone. Just then, he felt a gaze pierce through him. When he turned, it was his father, standing on the outskirts, seemingly torn between skepticism and intrigue as he observed his son once again grappling with who he was on his own terms. The precarious balance of acceptance hung heavy in the air, an unspoken challenge. Before he could brace himself for another confrontation, an unexpected urge compelled Alex to approach him. He could feel the weight of a decision pressing upon him. Would he summon the courage to speak again, laying bare the vulnerabilities yet unexamined, or retreat back into the shadow of what had been? With new clarity coursing through him, Alex stepped forward, focused on the need for authenticity. He had to confront the tide of expectations, but this time spurred by the burgeoning acceptance of his true self, a self that deserved to thrive in its own right. As he advanced, the path painted by uncertainty lay before him, brimming with textures and layers yet to be discovered. The moment he reached his father, Alex realized that their legacy could intertwine, but only if he was willing to share the unfiltered reality of who he had become.
Would this be the moment that defined not just his future, but the nature of their relationship? As he stood at the precipice of this revelation, Alex felt the tension thrum intensely around them, and the air shimmered with the possibility of transformation. As Alex drew closer to his father, he was acutely aware of the palpable tension that hung between them. The clamor of the gallery faded into a distant hum, replaced by the rhythmic pulse of his own heartbeat. Each step felt like a leap across a chasm, bridging the years of confusion and estrangement that had colored their relationship. He reached for words that felt both simultaneously powerful and fragile, unsure if they would bridge their emotional divide or deepen the rift. "Dad," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. The word resonated with commitment, an assertion of his identity that had been long obscured. "Can we talk?" He gestured toward a quieter area near the rear exit, illuminated by the warm amber glow of overhead lights. His father shifted slightly, as if contemplating whether to indulge this unexpected approach. With a slight nod, they stepped aside, leaving the crowd behind them. The space felt almost conspiratorial, as if the other attendees were oblivious to the deeper narrative unfolding in this intimate cocoon. Alex breathed deeply, feeling the familiar weight of doubt flicker to life, but also the embers of defiance. This was no fluke. This was his reality now, messy and raw. "I saw you out there," his father started, his tone rigid but not unkind. "Your work." He hesitated, as if searching for an appropriate sentiment. "It was different." Alex felt a sharp intake of breath. Different. It was a word layered with potential, an invitation or a dismissal. "Different how?" he pressed, the urgency feeding into his determination. "It's not what I expected," his father replied, his brow furrowing as if that single phrase required deeper contemplation. "I suppose I thought you would have chosen a safer route." The words landed heavily in the space between them. Was this acceptance wrapped in critique, or a veiled suggestion to conform? "I understand," Alex replied, firming his resolve. "I could have painted what would please you, what would fit neatly into the box you built around art. But I've chosen to share my truth, which might not always align with your expectations. It's terrifying, but it's real." The silence that followed felt monumental. Alex felt a rippling wave of vulnerability crash over him. What if his acknowledgement of their strained relationship communicated itself too boldly? What if his father rejected it? The reality of it stung, but he pushed forward, refusing to retreat into doubt. "I made choices to step beyond your shadow," he continued, courage surging with each word. "And I want to know who you are when you strip away the expectations too. Will you be there to witness the truth of my journey?" The question lingered, fragile but essential, a thread woven through years of miscommunication. His father's demeanor shifted slightly, as if Alex had struck a chord of recognition hidden beneath layers of seasoned stoicism. "You think I don't want to understand?" he asked, the sharpness easing into curiosity. "I think I've never given you the chance to try," Alex admitted, humility lacing his honesty. "Just as I always sought your approval before taking risks, now I want you to see me as I am, and not just as your son who has to conform. That matters." His father ran a hand through his hair, an old habit signaling conflict and reflection. "You've brought me into a space where I need to rethink. About you, about us. It's unsettling." "Good," Alex responded, the tipping point of a possible reconciliation stirring within him. "Because uncertainty can lead to better understanding. I'm willing to step
into that discomfort, will you?" The invitation hung in the air, raw and unrefined, and for the first time there was a flicker of something in his father's eyes. Perhaps it was hope or regret, but Alex hoped it was a glimmer of acceptance. This was the moment where their narratives had the potential to converge, where Alex's voice could not only speak forcibly for itself, but also create space for his father's own honesty. As silence enveloped their exchange, Alex contemplated what lay ahead. Could this be the nascent spark for a relationship transformed, one where they both could speak freely, stripped of past entanglements? If they could navigate this conversation, perhaps Alex could finally release the burdens that had stifled his artistic spirit for so long. But as another moment of silence blossomed into tension, he recognized the weight still rested heavily on his shoulders. The shadows of their history lingered, and he sensed the unfamiliar ground beneath them was still fragile. The future beckoned, filled with possibilities and uncertainties, and as Alex's heart raced with the desire for honesty, he questioned if his own journey of acceptance could withstand the tremors of unresolved conflict. Would this act be a stepping stone towards authenticity, or would it reveal further distance between them? He held on to that uncertainty, preparing to confront whatever truth would emerge from this pivotal moment. The air crackled with potential, and he stood poised, teetering on the edge of revelation. The moment had arrived to confront not only the expectations of his father, but also the undeniable truth within himself. Would both be ready to weather the storm that inevitably rolled in? The silence throbbed between Alex and his father, thick with unspoken truths. For a fleeting moment, Alex dared to hope that they were on the brink of something profound, but the tension felt like a rubber band stretched to its limits. He swallowed hard, searching for the words that could shift their fragile dynamic. "What did you expect from me?" he asked. "You never really showed me what it meant to embrace risk or vulnerability. You've always played it safe, both in art and in life. But that's not me anymore." His father's expression hardened, the brief flicker of curiosity extinguished. "You think I haven't taken risks? You think life choices are about colors on a canvas or the medium used?" His voice was defensive, the strain of confrontation brewing. Alex sensed the cracks in his father's well-crafted armor. "Life is about more than the surface, Dad. I need you to see me beyond what you wanted me to be." Each word was layered with the weight of his journey, a quest for self-definition that had taken years to construct. A storm gathered in his father's eyes, and Alex braced himself for the backlash. Instead, his father's shoulders drooped slightly, revealing a moment of vulnerability. "You're right. I've built my expectations around my fears. Is that what you want? To pull me out of my comfort zone?" "Yes." The fervor in Alex's voice surprised him as it auto-released a pent-up wave of frustration. "But not just to challenge you. I want to know you without the constraints of my childhood or your dreams for me. This isn't just about making my art. It is about disentangling from all the shadows we've cast." For the first time, it struck Alex that this conversation wasn't just about his expression as an artist. It was also a reckoning for the man who stood before him. His father wore the weight of their expectations like a heavy cloak, constraining his spirit. Alex reflected momentarily on the life lessons he had internalized from his father's near-obsessive need for control and order. Maybe. His father's tone shifted, softer now, suffused with contemplation. "Maybe we both have been operating within constraints. Yours from the world you want to break free from, and mine from the expectations that I've held. What do we do with that?" In that instant, Alex's resolve strengthened. We start with honesty. No more masks. It was liberating to lay down his own fears and extend an olive branch. But would his father reciprocate? He longed to witness his father peel away the layers he had built up over decades, to witness the man underneath the expectations. "Let's hold each other accountable," Alex continued, emboldened by the crack in their emotional dam. "I step into the unknown every day, and I need you to redefine your existence as well." The air between them was charged, filled with the potential to evolve. They both knew the risks that lay ahead, conversations that could unearth far deeper emotional scars than they were prepared for. The paths of discovery were littered with the remnants of unresolved conflict, and still, there was hope. "Okay," his father finally breathed, a seeming surrender entwined with curiosity. "But it won't be easy.
What if we hurt each other in the process? Alex disliked the prospect, but recognized it as a necessary evil. He had hurt for years. Stoic silence had built a wall between them. But what kind of relationship entails comfort? He countered. Let's navigate the hard parts together. I refuse to be a visitor in my own life anymore. As they both stood at the precipice of honesty, Alex felt the energy shift in their dynamic. There was no guarantee that this would bring them closer or drive them apart, but that uncertainty ignited courage in him. Both recognized they were weaving a complex pattern of aspirations and aspirations lost. Perhaps confronting it was the only way to move forward. And as thoughts of past hurts, dreams, and hopes danced precariously in his mind, Alex's heart raced with the exhilarating dread of what was coming next. Would this dialogue dismantle the walls that had long separated father and son, or would it unveil deeper fissures of resentment? As he contemplated the crossroads laid bare before them, he couldn't help but feel the heat of reckoning pressing in. Would they rise together into uncharted territory, or would this moment fizzle, betraying their shared potential? The future loomed impossibly close, a realm of discovery teeming with everything unsaid. The air remained heavy with anticipation as the moment stretched between them. Alex felt as if every heartbeat resounded in the silence, mirroring the unaddressed thoughts swirling in both their minds. He took a deep breath, focusing on the fragile openness they'd carved out. Each moment of stillness was an opportunity, a tightening spiral ready to pop. "Let's start by sharing truths," Alex said, attempting to forge a pathway for dialogue. "What do you fear the most?" His father's brow furrowed, and for a brief second his eyes flicked away, as if the question had left invisible scars. "I fear losing you in this search for freedom you're undertaking," he admitted, voice strained. It was a revelation, exposing a vulnerability like a fresh bruise, pushing Alex to consider the irony of his father's fear, that by embracing his own authenticity, he might lose the only connection he had fought so hard to reclaim. "By trying to define me, you've pushed me away. You think control means security, but it doesn't," Alex countered, his words sharper than intended. But the truth felt vital, like lighting a match in a dark room. Freedom doesn't mean abandoning you, it means choosing to connect authentically. I just need you to trust that I can find my own way. For a moment, his father remained stoic. Then a sigh escaped him, revealing cracks in his composure. "And I need to learn that love doesn't mean control. I only wanted to protect you." "If only you'd let me make my own choices," Alex replied, his emotions shifting rapidly, from anger to empathy. "I've made mistakes, yes, but I'm proud of how I've grown through them." He paused, weighing his options, wanting to tread carefully around the thorns of their shared past. "What I haven't been proud of is how I've seen you. This standoffish facade keeps you away from seeing me." The words landed with a heavy weight, and Alex felt his heart thumping against its cage as he braced for the fallout. But surprisingly, his father nodded, face drawn, as he slowly began to unravel. "Maybe I mistook your potential for a reflection of my own desires," he admitted, voice low and racked with regret. "That's exactly it. I'm not a replication of your dreams," Alex declared, the empowerment in his voice growing. The dialogue had shifted into a realm previously unexplored. "I choose to create my own narrative, but it would be easier if you stood beside me, not in front of me." The dialogue opened more questions, each one floating delicately around the room like butterflies. Would his father ever fully understand this concept, or would their entanglement and expectations always hold them captive? "Let's make a pact then," his father suggested, his expression transforming, a subtle warmth emanating from him. "Let's be each other's guides. I'll step back from my notions, and you maintain transparency about where you're headed." Alex felt a flicker of hope. The thought of forging a new framework,
one built not on myths of control, but on compassion and patience, was exhilarating. I want you to show me who you are beneath the expectations too. We need both of us to risk vulnerability. In this exchange, Alex sensed a transformation brewing, but with it came the uncertainty of the shadows rooted in their past. Could their renewed negotiations remain unbroken in the wake of deeper truths? As the conversation stretched onward, a new urgency gripped him. He questioned whether revealing the fragile underbelly of his father's fears might solidify their bond or eradicate it entirely. The stakes were increasing. The truth began to usher in emotional revelations. But this newfound courage was intoxicating, urging him further into the realm of personal exploration. "Can we also explore our passions?" Alex ventured, daring to tread new ground. "What if we reveal the art we both love, apart and together?" Just as he uttered those words, an unshakable thought seized him. He had prepared for conflict and confrontation, but maybe this was the glimmer of a collaborative potential neither had anticipated. The possibilities danced before them, resplendent and risky. But as excitement bubbled within him, another pang of doubt crept back in. What if they fell back into old patterns? What if Alex's pursuit of authentic self-expression drove his father further away instead of bringing him closer? The air between them was tangible with anticipation, but a question loomed. Could they both conquer their ghosts, or was this just another fleeting moment in a battle spanning years? Would they seize the opportunity, or succumb to the familiar weight of unresolved histories? The realization struck Alex hard. They were about to step into the fire, and he felt the heat curling around them both. With his father looking into his eyes, the walls ready to shatter, what would be the next bold stroke in their evolving masterpiece? The exhibition had ended, but for Alex Bennett, the true art lay in the exchange that had unfolded between him and his father. After years of stifling silence, the dialogue sparked a resonance neither had anticipated. They stood in the afterglow, the gallery now empty, yet full of potential energy, each breath carrying the weight of possibility. "Can we start fresh?" Alex asked, the vulnerability in his tone a stark contrast to the bravado that had ebbed and flowed in their earlier confrontation. The connection forged moments before felt delicate, as if it could be snuffed out under the harsh scrutiny of past grievances. His father took a long pause, contemplating the question that bridged the chasm between their worlds. The flicker of uncertainty in his eyes softened, revealing a glimpse of the man who had sat behind a wall of defense.
"Expectations for so long. I want to try. I've spent years holding corners of ideals too tightly, and it seems I've missed so much," he admitted. The floodgates of honesty opening. The acknowledgement sent a pulse of hope through Alex, like vibrant paint splashing across a once blank canvas. His father continued, "I want to see you, for you, not as a reflection of my success or my ambitions." "Then let's do that," Alex replied, the weight of the moment bringing clarity. "Let's embrace each other's stories instead of overshadowing them." The foundation of a new relationship began to take shape, built on straightforward commitments instead of the confusion left in the wake of uncharted expectations. In the days that followed, Alex immersed himself in his art as a form of personal therapy, channeling his emotional upheaval onto the canvas. Each brushstroke became a testament to the growth he had achieved. No longer constrained by his father's ideals, he was crafting a narrative of his own. The duality of vulnerability and strength echoed through every work he completed, each piece resonating with a newfound clarity that mirrored both his creative spirit and burgeoning connection with his father. Meanwhile, their new dynamic flourished. Alex's father began attending his art sessions, often offering quiet encouragement, tentatively stepping into a space where words of validation had once been foreign. "That color, you've transformed pain into something beautiful," he remarked one afternoon, an appreciative spark igniting in his eyes. The words lifted Alex's spirits. Each constructive comment from his father felt like a brushstroke in the creation of a deeper bond, a painstakingly built masterpiece of mutual understanding. Slowly, the specter of their previous conflicts transformed into an intricate weave of acceptance, each interaction infusing his art and his life with vibrance and depth. As the next competition approached, Alex stood at the precipice of a daunting submission. He had conquered the doubts that had once plagued him, bolstered by his father's subtle presence, both as a guide and an audience, no longer fueled by expectations. Instead of crumbling under pressure, this time he felt empowered, ready to express himself unfiltered. In the days leading up to his presentation, he shared his work with a group of artists at the community college, a melting pot of creativity he had embraced not just for feedback but camaraderie. Their diverse perspectives helped hone his craft further, culminating in a piece that resonated with his light and dark experiences. It was both an affirmation of self-acceptance and a celebration of vulnerability. The day of the competition loomed with its familiar tension, but now it posed a challenge beckoning both Alex and his father. As he prepared to present his work, he caught sight of his father in the audience, a captivated expression on his face, something akin to pride. It was a view that tore down any remaining barriers in Alex's heart. "Today, I stand before you not as a son weighed by expectation, but an artist committed to authenticity," he announced before the panel, each word firm and resolute. He shared the story behind his piece, its roots grounded in grief and shaped by resilience, a canvas woven from his entire journey. And as reactions rolled in, the word brave echoed amidst the murmurs of the audience, but this time it sparked nothing within him but solid confidence. Unlike before, when uncertainty had clouded his narrative, now he was untethered, embracing joy in the recognition of his talent. The acknowledgement that followed was raw and unconditional. The panel lauded his courage to explore themes that resonated well beyond mere observations of privilege. They saw his struggle reflected in the fluency of his strokes, the complexity of his colors. Yet, as moments passed and feedback circled the room, one specific comment anchored into his heart, spoken by an older critic with seasoned insight. "Your work doesn't merely paint a picture, it conveys a message of transformation and the triumph of self-discovery." In that moment, Alex knew he had arrived, not just in a professional sense, but on a profound personal level. He had conquered not only the fears that had haunted him with every brushstroke, but had also transformed an agonizing past into a vibrant channel for recognition and acceptance. As the final remarks teased applause throughout the gallery, Alex caught a glimpse of his father, standing up, beaming, the pride radiating off him like sunshine breaking through storm clouds. It was then Alex grasped the gravity of his journey. Not only had he achieved professional acknowledgement, but he had facilitated an unspoken transformation within his father as well, moving from a position of bewilderment towards flourishing understanding. The applause blurred into the background as Alex felt a resurgence of fulfillment wash over him. In that cacophony of appreciation, a melange of external validation and internal growth swirled within him. He was no longer the boy confined to the shadows of expectation. He stood firmly in the light of his own creation. In that space of triumph and vulnerability, it became clear to Alex. He had rewritten the narrative not just about artistry, but about fatherhood, authenticity, and family. And just like that, the masterpiece continued, evolving moment by moment, brushstroke by brushstroke. And in the end, as he turned to face his father, a bond woven through struggle and acceptance blossomed anew, signaling an uncharted journey ahead, a future rich with possibility, as art forever would be. Now feel the urgency of this transformative moment. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss our next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to fuel the algorithm and spread inspiration.
Comment below with your thoughts and theories on this incredible resolution. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative conclusion today. Don't wait even one more second to join our adventure in personal overcoming stories. Your support makes all the difference.